there's some misconceptions, and people have some pretty funny ideas about what a dog should eat and what they shouldn't eat. And a lot of this is perpetrated by the people that are making money. Now, flat out, dog food, this is a fact, has everything in it that your dog would need. Everything's in it. All the minerals, all the vitamins. That's true. That's true. That's a fact. That is a fact. So you do not run the risk of your dog having, like a calcium deficiency or screwing up the calcium phosphorus level, because all that's in there. All that's in there. But there's other stuff in there that your dog doesn't need, and it's a totally unnatural diet. It was approximately 1955, 1956 when they started using this process of extrusion where they would make this kibble type thing and then cook it, and then that's what we have, that sort of dried formula in many different forms, and it's not healthy for your dog, and I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's freeze dried. I don't care if it's the cooked kibble that you see. That is not a healthy diet for your dog or your cat. And one of the main reasons that it isn't healthy is that the people that are selling this are trying to make money. Now, once again, I'm saying that all the vitamins are in there. The vitamins, the minerals, all that stuff has to be in there for it to meet, so the FDA will approve it. That doesn't mean that it's healthy for your dog. In other words, a dog, the pet food companies say, is not an obligated carnivore. And that's because you can feed a dog a bunch of crap and it doesn't die instantly. It's a fact. It's a fact. So they say it's not an obligated carnivore, but it is a carnivore. Definitely is a carnivore. Your dog needs 0 carbs to live. Zero carbs. They get the bulk of their energy from proteins and fats. They're nothing like a human. Just think about it. We get the bulk of our energy from carbs. A dog gets the bulk of their energy from protein and fat. It needs 0 carbs to live. It can live on fats and protein. But we have pet food companies that are selling this stuff in bags that are convenient to the consumer. And they're making it so that the consumer sees the bag, they see these chunks of carrots and all this stuff on it. Dogs don't eat carrots. Think about it. Does a wolf dig up carrots and eat it? No. Will they eat plant material? Yeah, they will. They will eat it, but it's undigestible. So what's the purpose of it? I don't know, to quell hunger pains, whatever. But the point is that if your dog eats grass, it is not eating vegetables. It's not, and it can't even utilize that grass. The reason why we know this is because either the dog is going to throw up the grass or it's going to poop it out, and either way it's going to look the same. A dog is a carnivore. In other words, a dog will eat a prey animal and eat the whole animal. So it'll eat the stomach contents of the rabbit. Those stomach contents in the rabbit have been digested, therefore the dog could utilize some of the stuff in there, but it can't utilize, think about the stomach contents of a rabbit. How much is there? Not very much. It's a carnivore. It's full-on carnivore like a cat. But the dog can put up with more punishment as far as dietary crap goes. So that's why pet food companies do this. They can put a lot of stuff like potatoes. Dogs don't eat potatoes. Well, they do because it's in dog food, and they can get away with feeding that to our dogs and our cats, corn, stuff like that. Unhealthy. It's an unhealthy diet. It is. Now, there's things that people think. They think that, well, dogs have been around us for 10,000 years, blah, 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 and their diets have changed. They're no longer like wolves. It's a subspecies of the wolf, and you could do the same thing to a wolf. You could feed them dog food, so So the whole theory is just thrown out the window. It's nonsense, okay? It's nonsense. You could abuse a wolf just as easy. You could abuse a subspecies of a wolf and feed them dry kibble, and they will, be able to live. Is it a healthy diet? No. Would they be getting all their vitamins and minerals from that dog food? Yes. But is it a healthy diet? Absolutely not. Dogs in zoos are often fed, same thing that most smart people feed their dogs, which is raw chicken. The reason why we use raw chicken is because poultry bones are soft and they're easy for the dog to digest. I'm not talking about cooked chicken bones, because cooked bones of any kind will splinter and hurt a dog. You do not give, you've heard that? Don't give a dog chicken bones, right? They're talking about cooked chicken bones. Raw chicken bones are what you give a dog, raw, meaty bones. In other words, like chicken leg quarters that would have the proper amount of protein and would have the proper amount of calcium in that chicken leg quarter. That is what they would probably give. Well, they do. In many zoos, they're giving, wolves or coyotes that be giving them chicken because it's economical choice to feed them. Yeah, they could give them beef or they could give anything, but you would have to give calcium along with that, because like beef bones and stuff like that would have a tendency to be a real hard bone, and a wolf might break that. That's another reason why we don't use heavy like femur bones and stuff. You don't want to give that to like your pit or something, because they might crunch it and bust their teeth. We're not talking about wolves in Yellowstone. They learn how to work a buffalo. They kill a buffalo and they work the bone. They know how to do that. That's the same thing would be true as if you have your dog on a raw diet from day one. They know how to work a bone, so they're not going to break their teeth. But if you give raw chicken bones are hollow because birds have to fly, so the bones are light. So it's easy for the dog to digest. I'm going to say this one more time. Cooked chicken bones are dangerous to your dog. They can splinter and give your dog enteritis and all kinds of problems. Raw bones are safe for your dog if you know what you're doing. You would not use a chicken wing, in other words. You would not use that because the dog might wolf it down and it might get stuck in their throat. Chicken leg quarters are the preferred cut because they're big enough and there's enough. It is not the same thing as a drumstick and a thigh. Just stop thinking that. You don't know what you're doing. Don't do it. And by the way, it is not the raw meat diet. They have to have calcium or you're going to make the dog sick. Your dog's going to get diarrhea. If your dog doesn't have the proper amount of calcium, it'll get diarrhea. It's not the raw meat diet. Repeat after me. It is not the raw meat diet. It's called raw diet. And if you want to talk about the barf diet, that's the raw diet too. That's bones and raw. It has to have calcium as part of its diet with the protein. That's why we prefer chicken leg quarters, is because, once again, that is not the same thing as a drumstick and a thigh. It does have a drumstick and a thigh, but it also has this big section of spine along it that's full of calcium. So it has a proper amount of calcium. You could also use chicken packs. If you used a thigh or a drumstick, you would have to add in, like, say, maybe a chicken talon. Those have a lot of calcium in it. But you would have to add calcium. If you're going to give liver, you have to add calcium. Say you get a beef kidney. What would you have to do? You'd have to add calcium. You have to add calcium. It's better to have more calcium, like more than enough calcium, because the dog will excrete it. If your dog doesn't have enough calcium, then it's going to leach it from its own bones. Did you just hear what I said? If your dog doesn't get enough calcium in its diet, it will leach it from its own bones. How much calcium does a dog need? Well, at least twice as much as a human. Did you hear what I said? At least twice as much as a human, and it depends on the dog. If you have a growing puppy, they're probably going to need more calcium than an older dog. You have to make sure that the dog is getting enough calcium. Bones are part of the diet. It just can't be cooked bones. Cooked bones make your dog sick. They give your dog enteritis. This notion that, oh, the dog is different than it was, 5,000 years ago. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's very similar to, it's a subspecies of the wolf. There are differences in body types, of course, but it essentially needs the same thing. If you look at the pet food industry, like, well, let's see, when was the first pet food company started? It was Spratz, I think, started in 1860. They tried selling these dog biscuits, sort of like a hardtack to English gentlemen, like trying to sell that as like a selling thing. It really didn't take off. And then about 1900, there were other companies that were starting to start up. Well, we're gonna sell things to people that have dogs, and dogs about 1900 started becoming more popular. Before then, it was aristocrats that had dogs, because why would somebody want a dog? You're not going to eat it. You're not going to eat it, so farmers aren't really going to have dogs unless it's a working dog. So most people didn't have dogs. There wasn't like a thing like it is now. People had dogs in their house and shit. So 1860, Sprat started making this dog biscuit that was a lot like hardtack. Didn't take off, like I said. It wasn't really like a big seller because you know, people were still like just going to the butcher, giving their dogs scraps and stuff like that. People that had dogs, that's generally what you would do. It's like you went to the butcher, or you butchered a deer, whatever. You butcher a cow, here's scraps for the dog. But most people didn't have dogs. But around 1900, it had to do with English royalty, actually, and some corgis. So it became popular, it became fad for people to start having dogs, and the American Kennel Club started. And so 1900, more people were having dogs in their house and as pets. So 1915, 1920, 1922, 1925, they started producing pet food. I think Kennel Ration was starting to produce a horse meat food, and I believe Purina, 1922, started making a similar product. It wasn't until after the war when they started the extrusion method of like making a mush and then extruding it through like a thing, and it coming out in form of like kibble. And then about 1956, after the war, that started being a big seller. Does that mean it's healthy for your pet? Absolutely not. It's more like Doritos. Imagine they make this product, and then because it's a cooked product, they have to put vitamins back into it. They have to dust it with vitamins after it's cooked. Does that sound healthy to you? Would you eat Doritos all the time? Would you eat Doritos? Imagine an animal that is used to, or should be eating a product that is hydrated, like raw meat. Dogs on raw diet, not raw meat diet, it's raw diet, right? Raw protein, raw fat, and raw bone. It has to have bone, okay? That's why we use chicken. They're hydrated when they eat it. But your dog that eats the kibble has to lap up a bunch of water to hydrate the food. And when the food gets hydrated in the dog, it expands. It expands. And then the dog has intestinal problems. And one other thing that should be noteworthy about pet food is dogs on raw diet, you don't really hear about them having bloat. They don't get bloat, because they're not eating a dry food and then it expanding in their stomach. That dogs can get bloat like a horse. It happens all the time. Big barrel-chested dogs like Irish setters and shit like that, they get bloat and die. If your dog gets bloat, you see it walking around kind of like fucked up, you have to take it to the vet, and then they have to operate real quick. That's caused by pet food. Ask your vet. Ask your vet that doesn't want your dog on raw diet for whatever inane reason it is. It's about public health or something because of like salmonella, which the problem with salmonella, it doesn't exist because the chickens, don't get your chickens from the farmer down the road. Get your chickens from Walmart or someplace like that, Tyson, one of the factory farms, because those eggs are inoculated for salmonella before the chicken's even born. That's totally safe. So the vet's inane reason is, one, public health, salmonella, which really doesn't exist, Ask your vet, how many dogs have you treated for salmonella poisoning from raw diet? None. Or the point is, the dogs that salmonella wouldn't really affect your dog. It might give it like loose stools or diarrhea, and then the dog's fine. The problem for salmonella is you. You. That's what they're worried about. It's about public health. The other reason that your vet doesn't want you to give your dog raw diet is because they know that people are stupid. And they hear, like, I hear it all the time. What about the raw meat diet? You don't know how many idiots I have had to explain that it isn't the raw meat diet, that if you don't put calcium in the dog's food, you're going to make them sick. I can remember this girl in Brooklyn. I switched the dog over to raw diet, and then instantly, when the dog goes home, she's just going to the store and getting ground turkey without calcium. She can't figure out why the dog has the runs. I said, what are you giving the dog? She said, ground turkey from the store. I said, did you add calcium? No, am I supposed to? I said, you had to do that. I said, don't just give your dog chicken with bones in. Oh, I thought I was doing good by getting it ground for her. You fucking idiot, arrogant owner. This is somebody that works for BarkBox. She's a moron. The advantage is one, it takes longer for your dog to eat, right? The bones. It gives them something to do. They expend energy, which the house dogs, come on. Everything that you can do for the dog to expend energy is good. You could take that leg quarter and freeze it and make it even more difficult for the dog to eat. Make them work at it. She couldn't figure this out. She couldn't figure out that, like, I said bone-in chicken, so you're going to just go get chicken without bone and think that it's going to be healthy for your dog. It's not. It's not. This nonsense of feeding your dog pet food is ridiculous. There's a lot of raw diets out there that are claiming that they're healthy for your dog, but they're not really that. They're a little bit better in that they're hydrated, okay? And it is raw, but they're filling it full of stuff your dog really doesn't need. Lots of apples. It's filler. It's filler so that the pet food companies make money. That's what it's about. It's about vets making money. It's about pet food companies making money. But the vet knows that the owner is stupid. But, you know, if the vets had had any sand whatsoever, they would sit the owner down and say, yeah, you could give your dog raw diet, but you have to add calcium. See, that's what they're worried about, is that the dog will have like an unbalanced diet. As mostly what you're talking about is calcium. Yeah, your dog needs other things than calcium, sure, but calcium phosphorus that level's just gonna fuck the dog up. It's sort of similar to like, oh, I'm gonna give my dog or I'm gonna give my cat, you know, the raw diet, the raw meat diet, and they're not gonna get enough taurine. Taurine, think blood. Think blood. If you don't, your cat's gonna go blind. It's not nonsense. It's nonsense. Stop screwing up your pets. It's not that hard switching your dog. First off, if you're going to switch your dog to raw diet, there's no transition. You just stop giving pet food. One of the reasons why they say on the pet food bag that you have to transition the dog, this is another problem the pet food has, is what they use for calcium is they use something called bone meal. Bone meal is cooked bone. What have we already said about cooked bone? Didn't we just talk about cooked bone a little earlier? What's cooked bone? It's an irritant to your dog. Well, that's what bone meal is. So when your dog's on pet food, you notice how it always like is getting diarrhea and stuff and always having stomach problems. Well, your dog on raw diet doesn't have that problem because it's not eating cooked bone. So what do you do when you transfer your dog into a raw diet? You stop giving pet food instantly and you start giving raw diet. You switch your dog over. Oh, I gave my dog a chicken leg quarter raw and they didn't want to eat it. So I'm going to give them pet food because I don't want my dog to be hungry. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. A wolf can go for 2 weeks without making a kill. 2 weeks. You think your dog can't go a day without eating? By the way, if your dog gets diarrhea, what is the best thing to do? Don't feed it. Don't feed it. It's called fasting your dog. You don't feed it for the day. If you feed your dog, say you feed your dog at 8 in the morning and 8 at night. So you don't feed it at 8 in the morning because they had diarrhea the night before, right? Then you don't feed it the whole day, and instead of 8 at night, maybe you feed it half the amount at like 9:30 because the diarrhea is slowed down, it's looking good. You feed your dog half the amount that it normally would eat. But I'm telling you, if your dog's on raw diet, this is not an issue. It's not an issue. One of the most common things that gives dogs diarrhea is overfeeding them. The more you feed, whatever you feed the dog, your dog's going to eat it. Most dogs are going to eat it as much as they can, as fast as they can. That's how the dog functions. It's a survival instinct. Watch how fast they can eat. They'll do the same thing with water. They'll drink. One thing that's true is dogs that are on pet food, they drink because they're used to doing it. It becomes behavioral because they have to hydrate that dry food that's in their stomach. This is all facts. Dogs that are on raw diet don't do that. You know how much water the dogs right now drink in the wintertime on raw diet? Not much. For the whole week, maybe. This is the truth. In the summertime, much more. You're asking complicated questions about liver, because remember, liver doesn't have calcium in it. I don't know what kind of liver you're talking about, HP. Is it chicken liver, beef liver? It's very rich and it's high in bacteria. You're going to want to add calcium if you're going to feed your dog liver. But the point that I'm trying to make is, if it's wintertime, say you got 6 dogs, and maybe over a period of a week, they drink about 3/4 of a gallon of water in a week because they're on raw diet. If it was 6 dogs on dog food, they'd be drinking about a gallon a day between them. If it was summer, they'd probably drink more. A dog on raw diet is getting hydrated by what they're eating. You got a puppy? You want to get it housebroken quick? Well, don't give it pet food. Get it on raw diet. Yeah, I raise chicken. Yeah, I just want to tell you right now that, Landon, that the birds that you raise aren't really safe to give to your dog, because those chickens are not inoculated in the egg. They're not inoculated for salmonella, and they're probably outdoors around wild birds, so that is not a safe option to give your dog or to sell to anybody. I'm just telling you, I'm just being honest with you. A sparrow gets in your chicken coop or something and spreads salmonella. I'm just stating the facts here, brother. You don't want to be giving that to your dog, or you don't want to be giving that to other people's dogs, thinking like, oh, well, it's healthy. It's healthy because it's organic. Bullshit. First of all, the chickens at Walmart, those Tyson's, no antibiotics are used, no hormones are used. That's a fact. Purdue and Tyson, they don't need to. It's just nonsense thinking like you're gonna go get down the road from like the farmer and it's gonna be healthier. It's not. It's nonsense. And for a human too, it's like safer to get your stuff at Walmart. That's just how it is. 1956 is when pet food started. 1956. So you're talking about, 65, 67, 68 years of making pet food. This has been nonsense. What was the most recent fiasco was that they were trying to sell this stuff called grain-free. Oh yeah, it's better for your dog. Oh, bullshit. And then the FDA had to come out and say, there's all these grain-free foods that are giving dogs cardiomyopathy. It's bullshit. shit. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. Any tips for my red-bone coonhound? What kind of tips do you want from me? I don't know your dog. What, just general tips? Yeah, feed your dog. Make sure your dog has water. What are you talking about? Yeah, you get these people out of here. I feed my dog turkey, chicken, oats, some apples, and veggies. Why, Brandon? Why do you do that? Apples? You give your dog apples? You sound like you're just feeding your dog nonsense. Seriously, and some veggies. Really? Are they cooked? Because if they're not cooked, your dog can't utilize them. Do you want me to repeat what I said in the beginning of this? If your dog eats grass, do you think that that's vegetables? Because your dog's going to shit it out. It's going to look exactly the same way that it did when it went in, or it's going to throw it up. So why would you be giving your dog, well, I'm telling you, why would you be giving your dog vegetables, Brandon? Why? And how are they prepared? If you're going to do that, use canned, because they're already sort of cooked. So you could use canned spinach. You're not helping the dog. You're not helping your dog by thinking, oh, I'm giving the dog the super. You're giving your dog a diet that sounds like it's good for a human, and that's what we see a lot, and that's what you see the pet food companies selling is like this bullshit in a bag. Your dog doesn't need fruit. Why doesn't your dog need fruit? Huh? Do you think your dog needs vitamin C? Your dog produces its own vitamin C. Why would your dog need sugar? Your dog doesn't need any sugar. Why would you give your dog fruit? I'm not saying that you can't give your dog a little bit of fruit. You want to give your dog a tiny bit of fiber? You want to give your dog 2 blueberries? Huh? Is that what you want to do? Hey, genius, I just said that a dog produces their own vitamin C. Do you understand the point that I'm trying to make, genius? No, you don't, do you? You don't. You don't. I give my dog 2 blueberries. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But you know what normal people, you know what most people do? They'll give their dog like a cup of blueberries. Do you see the point that I'm trying to make? Your dog doesn't need that. It's no. Do I like cats? I own a cat, dummy. It's nonsense. It's nonsense that people think that their diet is supposed to be like the diet of a human. It's not. It's non-human. What's the other thing about our diet and a dog's diet that's totally different? I'm asking somebody. Can somebody tell me what's different? Huh? We cook our food, lab partners. We cook our food. We're the only animal on this planet that cooks our food. Why would you cook food for a dog? Huh? Why would anybody do that? I'll tell you why. It's because it's somebody that has issues. Somebody that wants to have a baby or something, they want to nurture it. Or they don't want to train the dog, and cooking for the dog, they can feel like they're doing something great for the dog. But what the dog really needs is training. Do you understand what I'm saying? No, I said use canned vegetables because they're already pre-cooked. That's what I said. But I'm saying that that's a minuscule amount of what you would put in your raw diet. You have a German Shepherd. What do you need? About a teaspoon of spinach, if any. Some people don't give any fiber. Some dogs don't get any fiber. So, do you understand the point? Should dogs be eating raw meat? Fuck, dude. Why not? The point is they need calcium along with that red meat. A wolf eats buffalo and they eat deer. That's red meat, isn't it? isn't it? Should they be eating fish from the ocean? Well, maybe once in a while, sure, but would that be a natural diet for a dog or a cat? Think a cat should be eating ocean fish? I don't think so. Have I ever given ocean fish to a cat or a dog? Yeah. But I certainly don't give salmon to a dog because of salmon poisoning disease. But if I did, you know what? Tilapia. Tilapia works for dogs. You have a dog that has allergies, you could give bone-in tilapia. That's right, I said bone-in. You give them raw tilapia, but they have to have the bone. If you're just going to give tilapia meat, you would have to add calcium again. What are the most important components of the dog's diet? Protein, fat, calcium. That's it. How important is fiber? It's not that important. It isn't. It isn't. It's a fact. Yeah, sardines from a can, sure. You can give those. Sure, Tommy. Do whatever you want. The problem with human vitamins, by the way, if you're going to give calcium, you want to give calcium without D3 in it. The reason why you don't want to give D3 is because D3 is not water soluble, it's fat soluble, and will store up in the dog's body. And the vitamin D3 that is in calcium is for a human. And D3 will store up in the dog's body. You'll make the dog sick. Did you hear what I said? What kind of calcium do you get? Calcium without D3. And I suggest that you don't use bone meal. Although you could use bone meal, but you don't want to use bone meal. And the reason why you don't want to use bone meal is because, once again, that's cooked bone. It's cooked bone. And what is cooked bone? Cooked bone is an irritant to your dog. So you don't want to do that. You want to use calcium carbonate, just calcium. Some idiots ask me, like, well, what's the best brand of calcium? What? Calcium is calcium, okay? There's no better or worse brand. Just don't get it with D3 in it. Just don't get it with D3. Vitamin D3, you don't want to give D3 because it's fat soluble, not water soluble. That would be true with a cat too. Tommy, shut up. I answered your question. Shut up. If you weren't listening, that's your problem. Jesus Christ. How many times a day do you feed your dog? It depends on the dog. Generally, you're going to feed them twice or once a day. Does that answer your question? You can feed them once a day. You can feed them twice a day. If you feed them twice a day, you feed them less. If you feed them once a day, you're going to feed them more. Yeah, just morons here. What do you feed your cat? Bucket just ate pork with calcium. He ate the same thing that Mango's eating and Sam the Raven. You know, it really depends. It depends. Sometimes they get beef. I'm switching them back into chicken, and what I'll do is I'll take chicken leg quarters and I'll smash them. I'll smash them with a knife and then with a mallet, real good, and then I'll bag it up so it's smashed up. Because chicken's sort of too. The bones are a little bit too big for Bucket, although Bucket's about a 15-pound cat. So, no, thighs aren't good. You don't listen, Brandon. You're gone. I'm sick of you. We already went over thighs, didn't we? Didn't we just talk about thighs? You got problems, Brandon. You don't listen. A lot of these people just don't listen, you know? Yeah, I agree, Landon. There's a lot of trolls. I just wanted to talk real quick about pet food. So you understand that, the history of pet food. About 1860, there was a company called Spratz that put out some kind of biscuit, sort of like hardtack. 1860. It was sold to the English gentlemen. That's who they were trying to sell it to. So it was guys with hunting dogs. That's it. It was aristocrats. Before that, you have to realize that before like 1900, most people didn't have dogs. Dogs would have been like an expense. And if they did have a dog, it would be some kind of working dog. You wouldn't have little Fido running around. And then, there was the fucking English royalty had whatever the little corgis, and they became like fads. So after about 1900, they started getting in the American home. About 1922, Kennel Ration came out with horse meat, canned food. And then World War II happened, and then they stopped making dog food, and then after the war, about 1956, they started making this using the extrusion method of like it, forces this mush out, and then it dries it out and kind of cooks it in the oven. That's the kibble that we have today, and it's not good for your dog. It isn't. Give your dog raw diet. Make sure that it's on, like I said, use bone-in chicken, use leg quarters and leg quarters only. If it's a young puppy, you have to smash it. Don't listen to anybody that is saying, you could give a young puppy a leg quarter. That's nonsense. You're gonna give the dog enteritis. Don't listen to them. It's an 8-week-old puppy, 10-week-old puppy. You wouldn't start giving like a puppy a leg quarter until their teeth have started falling out and their muscles, are big. So if it's somebody that has like wolf hybrids or something, they're giving like their 10-week-old wolf hybrid, you don't have a wolf hybrid, okay? Okay, you got a Labrador. You're gonna give it the runs. It's gonna get sick. So you got to smash it for a couple months. That's it. Use leg quarters if you want to give your dog a multivitamin. A couple times a week, depending on the size of the dog. You'd break that. You would break that for sure. Think about like Centrum or something like that. It's an 80-pound dog. You give the dog half. Twice a week, something like that. But I want to be real clear about this, and this is the most important thing. If you're going to use beef or pork and you're going to add your calcium, you must make sure and get calcium that doesn't have D3 in it, because D3 is fat soluble, it's not water soluble, and that's going to store up in your dog, and it's going to cause real serious problems. Real serious problems. So do not do that. Get calcium citrate, something like that, without D3. You can find it at the pharmacy. You can find it at Walmart. Just look at the thing. Does it say with D3? Then don't get it. And don't use bone meal. You could use bone meal, but once again, you might as well be giving them pet food, because bone meal's a cooked bone product. That calcium citrate, that's totally different, man. That stuff assimilates like totally different. You're not going to have problems. If you give your dog a little bit too much, what does your dog do? It shits it out. If you give your dog too little, it'll leach the calcium that it needs from its own bones. So if you're going to use steak or pork, you have to add calcium. That's why it's easiest to use chicken, bone-in chicken. If you use bone-in chicken, you're going to have the proper amount of protein to calcium. But use a leg quarter. If you use a thigh, there's not enough calcium in there. If you use a breast, not even close to enough calcium. Dog's going to have terrible poops. You don't use chicken wings, because the dog could wolf that down and get stuck. And you don't use turkey necks either, because turkey necks with a big dog could really get stuck and really have some problems. Can't chicken bones splinter or something? You moron. Do you listen to me? I said cooked chicken bones are bad for your dog. I've said it so many times in this video. Do you listen? Have you ever listened? No, you can't. You can't get it through your head, can you? We're talking about raw chicken bones. They're safe for your dog, dummy. I mean, seriously, do you ever listen? God, should I switch from raw hamburger to raw chicken bones? God, I should switch from raw hamburger. What? You're giving your dog raw hamburger? That's a moron that's probably not giving their dog. They're on the raw meat diet. They think that it's about raw meat, don't you? You didn't even know about calcium, did you? You had no idea. You're a moron. You'll probably try giving your dog a vegan diet too, won't you? You people should be ashamed. I'll tell you something. 46% of all dogs, 46% of all dogs that are acquired as puppies are given up in the first year. You all suck, okay? There's a percentage of you people that are just fucking stupid and horrible people. 46%. It's a fact. 4 million dogs are dying every year in the United States alone. It's no different in Germany, the UK, Australia. You all suck. You do. You do. You think that the subspecies of a wolf is a morphed little human being. So clearly, the dog needs your love, is what you think. Well, love isn't enough for the dog, and love isn't enough for any of the pets. And let me tell you something else, a little statistic. What is the number one deficiency of all our pet animals that we have? All our pet animals. Calcium. It's calcium. Because morons think, I'm going to put the dog on the raw meat diet, whatever. Or your bird doesn't get enough calcium because you're not using a fortified feed. It's all of them. Your reptiles, they need calcium. They need more calcium. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what that's every fucking pet. Every pet. Your pet turtle is not getting enough calcium probably. It's not that difficult. It isn't that difficult. Everybody's being sold a crock of shit by the pet food companies. They are, because they want to make money. Yes, I do Skype sessions. Contact me through email and we'll set it up. We do it over Zoom. Yeah, it is. You're right. It is very common in turtles. It is very sad. It's unbelievable. It's not that hard. Pigeons, they need extra calcium. How do they get it? They get it in grit. They eat grit, which is rock. They need that to help digest. Where's Sam the Raven get his extra calcium? I add calcium into the raw meat, or he's eating like a dry dog food type thing. Okay, occasionally I'll give that, or cat food. But when he gets raw, or Harrison's that has calcium in it. But when it gets raw, it's like dusted with calcium. This isn't that hard. It isn't that hard. There's a lot of nonsense being put out there about dogs. Lots. Anyway, I'll talk to y'all. Thank you. Hey, what are you? Oh, hang on. Look who it is. Hang on. Look. Hang on. Look who it is.
Hello.
If people really care. If more people were like Bigfoot, more people would care. Up with Bigfoot. There's Bigfoot everywhere.
It's such a lovely thing that Peter brought into my life, is that
Bigfoot.
That song.
And by the way, I'm showing a Bigfoot tomorrow. I am. All right, bye.
Goodbye. Good night.